Picture the dusty horizon of the American frontier, a ragged stagecoach rattling toward danger, a lone gunman caught between duty and doom, restless cattle towns vibrating with greed and violence. Westerns were never just movies. They were national folklore projected on 35mm celluloid, a blend of truth, myth, and raw emotion that shaped how the world imagined the United States. Each film on our list dramatizes pivotal events, iconic outlaws, or era-defining conflicts, while gifting us characters whose triumphs and failures echo far beyond the screen. Saddle up. The trail to legend starts here. Stagecoach, 1939. John Ford's Stagecoach rumbles into Monument Valley like a traveling microcosm of America, bundling gamblers, soldiers, ladies, and a tarnished fallen woman into one cramped carriage racing toward Lordsburg. Released just as the Great Depression lifted and global war loomed, the film drew on real 1880s male roots and the Apache uprisings to root its drama in historical tension. Ford's sweeping, deep-focus frames weren't just picturesque. They documented the unforgiving vastness pioneers actually faced, grounding viewers in a tangible past. At the story's heart is Ringo Kid, John Wayne in his star-making role, an escaped prisoner determined to avenge his murdered family. Ringo's success is twofold. By the climax, he literally guns down the Plummer brothers, and symbolically he earns a second chance at life when the sympathetic marshal accidentally lets him slip across the border. Ringo's journey dramatizes the American ideal that rugged persistence and a hint of decency can rewrite destiny. Audiences embrace that optimism. Stagecoach grossed over $1 million worldwide in 1939, staggering for a B-picture Western, and kickstarted the prestige cowboy era. Its Oscar-winning editing and score established narrative rhythms still copied in modern action films. More than a ride through Indian territory, Stagecoach served as a reminder that disparate Americans could survive the country's roughest roads only by relying on one another, a theme as urgent in 1939 as it had been in 1880. High Noon, 1952. Fred Zinnemann's High Noon plays out in near real time, shadowed by the ticking of a pocket watch and the steady chug of Tex Ritter's ballad, "Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darlin'." While its plot echoes the real-life return of outlaw Frank Miller after a governor's pardon, its deeper history stems from 1950s America. Screenwriter Carl Foreman, later blacklisted, poured his own dread of McCarthyism into Marshal Will Kane's lonely stand against a mob's silence. Gary Cooper's Kane abandons his honeymoon, pins his tin star one last time, and agonizes over whether civic duty outweighs personal safety. Kane's ultimate success is paradoxical. He fells Frank Miller and his gang, yet discards his badge in disgust when the townsfolk emerge from hiding only after the shooting stops. The gesture exposes the moral rot beneath polite society, a victory that is more ethical than celebratory. High Noon defied studio expectations. Despite being condemned by some politicians as un-American, it earned $12 million globally, 20 times its budget, and captured 4 Oscars, including Best Actor for Cooper, whose weary gait embodied post-war disillusionment. Presidents from Eisenhower to Clinton cited it as their favorite film about leadership. In classrooms and military colleges alike, Kane's solitary walk down the street remains a case study in principled resolve. A historical lesson that courage, not consensus, anchors justice. Shane, 1953. Based loosely on the Johnson County War between cattle barons and homesteaders in 1890s, Wyoming George Stevens' Shane opens on Emerald Valley scarred by gunfire. Alan Ladd's soft-spoken drifter initially rides in as an outsider, but history soon presses him into service. Real land disputes during America's westward expansion gave Shane factual weight. Its log fencing settlers mirror actual families who fought corporations for a slice of soil. Shane teaches young Joey Starrett how to handle a gun responsibly, then straps on his own pearl-handled Colt for one final showdown in the saloon of ruthless rancher Riker. The duel is swift, brutal, and haunting, as silent bar patrons glimpse the slow death of frontier romanticism. Though mortally wounded, Shane's success unfolds on 2 fronts. He saves the valley's farmers from eviction and, by riding into mythic twilight, preserves Joey's idolized vision of heroism. Cinematographer Loyal Griggs captured every powder flash in eye-blistering Technicolor, making Shane a sensory document of frontier weaponry and raw landscapes. The movie grossed $20 million worldwide, influencing everything from Star Wars to Logan with its lone savior template. More importantly, Shane forced 1950s America to confront the true cost behind every grassy ranch postcard: blood in the dirt and a hero who must vanish so families can thrive. The Searchers, 1956. John Ford returned to Monument Valley for The Searchers, but the tone was darker, reflecting real post-Civil War hostilities between white settlers and Comanche tribes. Inspired in part by the 1836 kidnapping of Cynthia Ann Parker, the film follows Confederate veteran Ethan Edwards as he scours Texas for his abducted niece, Debbie. Unlike typical rescue tales, The Searchers confronts racial hatred head-on. Ethan's obsession borders on genocidal, capturing the period's ferocious cycle of revenge. Wayne's performance is thunderously complex, an anti-hero whose success is ambiguous. Yes, Ethan brings Debbie home after 5 years, but he remains spiritually exiled, framed alone in the final doorway as the family celebrates inside. His failure to re-enter civilization underscores how violence can estrange even its victors. That bittersweet ending, drawn from authentic frontier diaries, mirrored America's own struggle to domesticate its violent past. Initially controversial, The Searchers grew into legend. Its widescreen VistaVision vistas influenced spaghetti westerns and directors from Scorsese to Spielberg. The American Film Institute now crowns Ethan Edwards the 6th greatest movie hero, but with a grim asterisk reminding viewers that history's saviors can be its sinners. In confronting that duality, The Searchers turn the Western lens inward, forcing audiences to reckon with the scars national expansion left on both the land and the soul. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, 1969. George Roy Hill's buddy western channels the legend of the real 1890s hole-in-the-wall gang, yet it sparkles with late 1960s irreverence. Paul Newman's Butch is a silver-tongued strategist. Robert Redford's Sundance is a dead-eye idealist. Their success lies in audacity, pulling off train heists so daring that corporate America launches the West's first private manhunt. Each chase sequence is rooted in documented pursuits, including an 800-mile flight to Bolivia that newspapers breathlessly covered. As the frontier modernizes, telegrams, automobiles, globalized banks, the duo's Robin Hood mystique collides with cold economics. They vanish in a Bolivian blaze, freeze-frame mid-charge, never shown falling. This ending immortalizes them as folk heroes suspended between folklore and fact, successful at turning bank robbery into performance art, yet doomed by history's relentless march. Their camaraderie, more than their loot, is the film's real treasure. Audiences couldn't resist. Butch Cassidy became 1969's top box office draw, raking in $102 million worldwide. And Burt Bacharach's Oscar-winning song, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, topped charts. Critics hailed its sepia-tinted flashbacks and witty banter as revolutionary, breathing new life into a genre many thought dying. In an age of Vietnam and social upheaval, viewers saw in Butch and Sundance both the thrill of rebellion and the inevitability of change, a reminder that every golden age ends, but legends ride on in celluloid. The Outlaw Josie Wales, 1976. Clint Eastwood directs and stars in this gritty post-Civil War odyssey, adapted from Forrest Carter's novel, Gone to Texas, itself based on scattered tales of Missouri bushwhacker Bill Wilson. The film opens on smoldering ruins. Union irregulars have slaughtered Josie's family, pushing the once peaceful farmer into a guerrilla band that historians link to real raiders like Bloody Bill Anderson. Eastwood's dust-caked cinematography lingers on scorched cornfields and shattered homesteads, anchoring the revenge narrative in the documented brutality of border warfare. Yet Josie's arc is not endless bloodletting. As he heads southwest, he quietly gathers society's castaways: a Cherokee elder, a Navajo woman, a Kansas farm widow with her daughter. One by one, they choose Josie as protector, and the gunman discovers a new role: homestead defender instead of destroyer. His success culminates at a remote ranch in the Texas Hill Country, where he defeats the Redlegs' raid, then fakes his own death to slip the Army's noose. Victory here is measured less in bodies dropped than in lives rebuilt. Josie wills a family back into existence, converting vengeance into stewardship. Audiences cheered that transformation. Josie Wales doubled its $3.7 million budget in U.S. rentals alone, became Eastwood's first film added to the National Film Registry, and inspired scholars to cite it as one of cinema's most nuanced depictions of Reconstruction trauma. Its lingering image of a weary gunman holstering his Colt to help repair a barn reminds viewers that the West's real triumph lay not in killing, but in choosing, at last, to live. Dances with Wolves, 1990. Kevin Costner's sweeping epic resurrects the almost forgotten journals of Lieutenant John Dunbar, loosely inspired by frontier memoirs and the Lakota winter counts that chronicled Sioux life from 1800 onward. Shot on the actual plains of South Dakota, the story traces Dunbar's 1863 transfer to a lonely outpost, where buffalo herds thunder like living history and teepees punctuate a sky as wide as prophecy. Dunbar's real success unfolds in language, not gunfire. By trading names, stories, and jokes with Kicking Bird and Win in his hair, he acquires fluent Lakota, cinema's most meticulous on-screen rendering of the language at that time, and earns the new name Shunkawakanwachi. He brokers peace between a violent Pawnee patrol and the Sioux village, secures critical rifles for a buffalo hunt, and risks his life to rescue tribe members trapped by U.S. soldiers. Ultimately, he leaves Army Blue behind to follow the tribe into snowy exile, prioritizing cultural loyalty over national uniform. Box office receipts stamp that leap of faith with gold. The film grossed $424 million worldwide, nabbed 7 Oscars, and triggered a mini-renaissance in Native storytelling. Lakota elders later called it a milestone for respectful portrayal, while historians praised its accurate buffalo butchering sequences and depiction of 19th century trade goods. Dunbar's journey from earplug soldier to full-throated ally reframed Western heroism as the art of listening, proof that sometimes the most decisive victory is abandoning the fight. Tombstone, 1993. Every detail in George P. Cosmatos' cult classic crackles with footnoted precision. Wyatt Earp's long black coat reconstructed from period photographs, the silver inlaid Colt held by his tubercular ally Doc Holliday, even the musical cues echo 1880s saloon bands. The screenplay condenses newspaper archives and court transcripts about the 1881 gunfight at the OK Corral, still the most studied 30 seconds in Old West history, into a bullet-spraying ballet that feels both mythic and journalistic. Earp aims for quiet retirement in booming Silvertown Tombstone, but lawlessness drags him back into the badge. His success is brutally public. Alongside brothers Virgil, Morgan, and the terminally ill Holiday, he disarms the cowboys at the corral, then undertakes a vendetta ride across Arizona that kills Curly Bill and Johnny Ringo. Yet the film underscores personal cost. Earp loses a brother, Holiday coughs blood onto poker chips, and Wyatt's first marriage shatters under the weight of violence. Triumph here is a Pyrrhic crown, soaked red. Viewers devour the operatic blend of authenticity and swagger. Tombstone earned $73 million worldwide, sparked a catchphrase, and revived tourism in the real-life town. Historians lauded its faithful depiction of dime novel fame morphing into commodity. Tourists snapped selfies beside Earp's actual saloon because the movie reminded them he was real. In showing that legends bleed, Tombstone proved history is most gripping when it refuses to flinch. The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, 2007. Andrew Dominik's elegiac saga adapts Ron Hansen's meticulously sourced novel, itself a patchwork of Pinkerton files, newspaper broadsides, and Ford family letters. Shot into saturated autumn light, the film captures 1881 Missouri after the Civil War left communities frayed and fame newly mass-produced via railroad-linked newspapers. Brad Pitt plays Jesse James not as the shimmering outlaw myth, but as a paranoid man haunted by headlines he once courted. Jesse's successes, robbing a train in Nebraska, lifting money from a Kansas bank, are recounted like ghost stories, already sliding from fact into folklore. Robert Ford, at first starstruck, gains Jesse's trust enough to join his household. Ford's fatal shot on April 3, 1882, kills the legend yet births a new one, the coward label that will dog him for life. Ford's brief success, claiming a $10,000 reward and touring with a reenactment of the murder, evaporates when audiences turn on him, revealing the fickle appetite of celebrity culture. Though sluggish at the box office, the film grew into a critical jewel. Historians applauded its period-accurate dialogue, lifted from newspaper articles, and the hypnotic narration mimicking 19th century prose. It reminds viewers that history can be a spotlight so dazzling it burns, turning heroes and betrayers alike to ash, while the audience searches for the next show. The Revenant, 2015. Alejandro G. Iñárritu's survival epic resurrects the nearly mythic 1823 ordeal of frontiersman Hugh Glass, pieced together from fur trade ledgers and trapper folklore. Filmed in bone-numbing winter across Alberta and Patagonia, with only natural light, the movie plunges audiences into the raw pre-territorial West, where competing French, American, and Araucara interests collide along the Missouri River. Leonardo DiCaprio's Glass is mauled by a grizzly, an attack reproduced from eyewitness journals, and left for dead by his compatriot John Fitzgerald. Glass's success is almost inhuman. He cauterizes wounds with gunpowder, sleeps inside a disemboweled horse, and treks hundreds of miles to Fort Kiowa. But vengeance mutates into mercy. When he finally confronts Fitzgerald, Glass lets the Araucara exact justice, honoring his murdered Pawnee wife's plea to abandon hate. His true victory becomes spiritual endurance rather than blood repayment. Audiences felt every shiver. The Revenant hauled in $533 million worldwide, netted DiCaprio his elusive Oscar, and spurred tourism to Canadian parklands featured on screen. Historians acknowledged embellishments but praised its authentic portrayal of trapper tools, frontier sign language, and the multinational politics of the fur trade. By spotlighting a West barely touched by settlers, the film expands Western history backward into the wilderness, proving that before six-shooters and cattle trails, sheer willpower forged legends in ice. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, 1966. Sergio Leone's sprawling finale to the Dollars trilogy may star three treasure-hungry outlaws, but its backbone is pure American history. Leone hired Spanish military advisors to restage the real Battle of Piedmont, an 1864 Union victory that opened the Shenandoah Valley, planting hundreds of conscripted soldiers in blue and gray uniforms to charge across bridges wired with dynamite. Cannon crews drilled for weeks to fire period-correct bronze Napoleons, and Civil War historians still marvel at how accurately the chaotic river engagement mirrors eyewitness diaries. Against that brutal canvas, Blondie, Tuco, and Angel Eyes weave their gold hunt. Their battlefield success is opportunistic yet undeniable. They blow up the contested bridge to scatter both armies, slip into a field hospital under assumed names, and crack the cemetery code that leads to $200,000 in Confederate bullion. The climax at Sad Hill Cemetery, circling statues and wind-whipped dust, feels operatic, but the loot they dig for is rooted in lore of payroll shipments lost during Lee's retreat. Audiences worldwide hoisted the film to $25 million in 1966 dollars, and Ennio Morricone's howling theme became a pop culture anthem. More surprising is its academic afterlife. Military colleges screen the bridge sequence to illustrate the logistical nightmare of river crossings, and Civil War buffs credit Leone with spotlighting the war's neglected Western theater. By merging mythic gunfighters with a meticulously recreated campaign, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly turned a spaghetti Western into one of cinema's most vivid Civil War documentaries. Just with better hats. Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968. Leone's next Western epic dives earlier into history, 1868, when the Transcontinental Railroad was devouring frontier towns mile by mile. His production team hauled period steam engines from museums, laid fresh track in Spain's Tabernas Desert, and replicated small-gauge spur lines so precisely that railway societies still cite the film for authentic coupler design. Historian B.F. Klein called it the only Western where the iron horse feels as dangerous as any gun. At the story's heart is Harmonica, a nameless avenger protecting widow Jill McBain from rail baron Morton and his hired killer Frank. The character's success hinges on harnessing industrial momentum. Jill smartly transforms her dead husband's isolated flag station into a water stop, an economic choke point the railroad cannot bypass, while Harmonica orchestrates Frank's downfall during a desert land auction where every bid echoes manifest destiny. By the finale, a train whistles past a newly erected water tower, proving Jill's resilience has literally tapped into the future. Commercially, the movie outsold all earlier European westerns, raking in $61 million worldwide, and its haunting, 6-minute opening remains a masterclass in tension. More enduring is Leone's blunt message: progress crushes slower lives. Film scholars note that Jill's victory is bittersweet, her ranch becomes a freight yard, and Frank's corpse sprawls beside unused rails, a warning that greed can't outrun history's locomotive. In chronicling how steel tracks redrew America's map, the film captured both the exhilaration and the fatalism of the 19th century boom. The Wild Bunch, 1969. Sam Peckinpah's blood-soaked symphony begins in 1913, long after most westerns fade to black, on the eve of Mexico's revolution against dictator Victoriano Huerta. Shot along the Rio Naces in Durango, the production partnered with Mexican historians to reconstruct federal uniforms, Yaqui scout companies, and German-imported Krupp artillery. Even the vintage Colt Browning machine gun showcased in the film is the exact model smuggled to Huerta by German agents, a detail lifted from U.S. arms embargo records. Aging outlaw Pike Bishop and his gang attempt one last score by selling rifles to General Mapache. But witness the general burn villagers alive for amusement. Their success pivots when conscience overrides profit. They storm Mapache's fortress, free a tortured comrade, and unleash literal tons of ammunition on federal troops. They die to a man, yet their sacrificial stand tips the power balance, allowing rebel forces to seize Mapache's arsenal, an event mirroring how weapon caches captured in 1914 fueled Pancho Villa's ascendancy. Audiences recoiled and applauded in equal measure. The film earned $45 million globally and sparked new MPAA guidelines for on-screen violence. Peckinpah's revolutionary use of multi-camera slow motion now appears in war documentaries to analyze firefight kinetics. Mexican scholars appreciate its rare Hollywood acknowledgement that the frontier lingered south of the Rio Grande into the machine gun age. The Wild Bunch doesn't just end an era, it detonates it, framing heroism as a final, bloody choice between greed and justice. The Alamo, 1960. John Wayne poured personal fortune and 5 years of research into recreating San Antonio de Valero Mission exactly as it stood in 1836. He ordered 14-foot limestone walls, 18 working cannon cast from Mexican blueprints, and thousands of handmade bricks fired in period kilns, all erected on a 400-acre Texan ranch, now landmarked as Alamo Village. Military advisor John Dufour drilled 1,500 extras in Napoleonic infantry tactics, so the film's final assault would mirror General Santa Anna's dawn attack on March 6th. Inside those walls, characters measure success not by survival, but by ripple effect. Colonel Travis's command buys 13 critical days for Sam Houston's army to gather at San Jacinto. Davy Crockett's Tennesseans spike cannons to deny Santa Ana field artillery, and Jim Bowie's bedridden stand delays the North Wall breach, giving couriers time to escape with last pleas for reinforcements. Though all defenders fall, their deaths galvanize Texans under the rally cry, "Remember the Alamo," a moment the film stages amid fluttering flags and flames. Critics debated Wayne's politics, yet audiences flocked, pushing box office returns past $20 million and earning 7 Oscar nominations. Historians commend its accurate mortar placements and depiction of 18-pounder artillery, while noting embellishments like Crockett's final dynamite stunt. More importantly, the movie planted the Alamo in global memory. Tourism at the real mission doubled within 2 years of release. By rendering individual sacrifice on such a monumental scale, the Alamo shows how one doomed garrison reshaped continental destiny. Red River, 1948. Howard Hawks' thunderous epic begins in 1851 on the Mexican border and rides north through the blood-red dust of 1867, dramatizing the first legendary cattle drive from Texas to Kansas. Screenwriter Borden Chase consulted rancher Charles Goodnight, whose real-life Goodnight-loving trail inspired the route, down to the stampede-scarred salt flats near the Red River crossing. Hawks trucked 9,000 live longhorns to Arizona's Coconino Plateau, hiring 100 cowboys to rope, brand, and bed the herd exactly as diaries described. John Wayne's Thomas Dunson stakes everything on moving his cattle to the new railroad yards in Abilene, while adopted son Matt Garth champions a shorter path to Missouri. Success, however, is measured twice. Dunson wrangles the largest herd ever driven, 10,000 head worth of fortune, but loses trust when he tyrannically orders deserters hanged. Matt's mutiny completes the drive, selling the herd for $20 per head and forcing Dunson to confront the frontier's new code: collaboration over brute command. Their fistfight reconciliation seals both victories: wealth for Dunson, legitimacy for Matt, and births the modern cowboy partnership. Red River stampeded across 1948 box offices, earning $8 million and inspiring dozens of cattle drive movies and television series like Rawhide. Historians prize its depiction of chuck wagon logistics, river crossings, and nocturnal stampede triggers, details that ranch museums still cite in exhibits. Most of all, the film crystallizes the moment Texas beef met Northern rail, igniting a boom that fed half a continent. By capturing that first long trail in sweat, dust, and moral grit, Red River claims the badge of cinema's most historical Western, where every hoofbeat echoes the birth of an industry and the forging of the American West. And there you have it, 15 Western juggernauts that didn't just dramatize history, they made it, branding true events, real people, and seismic social shifts onto pop culture's imagination. If you felt the dust on your face and the echo of cannon fire in your chest, hit like, subscribe, and tell us which historical Western you'd ride into next. Until then, keep your powder dry and keep the legend alive.